So I'm going to switch a little bit to the WITS Leads program. One of the things that was happening with the WITS program was towards the end, when we looked at the very first data, we saw relational victimization going up when we divided the schools into low poverty and high poverty schools. And we were very concerned about that little upward tilt for this more socially competent kids. Like, what do we do about that? So the schools were asking us to also create whole school programs. A K-3 program wasn't really enough. It wasn't really appropriate for the older kids. The older kids at Frank Hobbs were saying, look at the babies using their wits. So we didn't think that was going to help. And so we worked with Frank Hobbs and with Lake Hill Schools to create the WITS Leads program. Wendy Holub did a lot of the initial testing of this program. And the idea was to create a leadership program. So this could be used alongside of an ambassadors program or some kind of create a language along the lines of a peer mediation program. And again, just to open language, give your community a common language, and a way of thinking about these things. So it was directed to be developmentally appropriate for 4th and 5th graders. I've studied the rise of relational aggression, physical aggression changes in this age group for a very long time. We also wanted to continue to hook it on the BC social responsibility standards, the language arts. But we really were worried about kids kind of understanding internal worlds, reputations, things you don't care about when you're in 3rd grade, but by the time you're in 5th grade, you care about who likes you and who doesn't, and who's your friend and who isn't, and why are you important and why aren't they, and some of the competition, the normal sort of pushing and shoving competition for social dominance really starts to come into its own in 4th and 5th grade. We start to worry a great deal about comparing ourselves to other people and what they look like and what we look like. And just the worst time in the world to be doing that, because your body's just changing and doing all these strange things that you have to look in the mirror every 5 seconds just to make sure it's still you. So it's a very difficult time, we think, for kids developmentally, just at the point where relational aggression is coming into its own. And that kind of teasing, pushing, shoving is really normative of the middle school or lower middle school age group. They're figuring things out. It also increases if we move kids from elementary to middle school. So you're plodding along in elementary, you kind of have a reputation, you know who you are, your teachers like you, they know who you are, and then all of a sudden you're in a new school with a bunch of kids you don't know, with a bunch of teachers who don't know you, and you're having to figure out the new social hierarchy. So typically at the beginning of the move to middle school, you're going to see more of this. And once kids sort of sort out some of the social hierarchies, it's going to be confined to fewer groups. That's a good thing, right? But in the meantime, this is a window of opportunity to talk about it, to say, what is relational aggression? What is it? And how do we stop being mean to each other using this mechanism? When they're 2 or 3 and we're trying to get them to stop hitting people, we tell them we're going to take them home if they don't quit biting the other kids, right? We actively train kids not to hit. The research shows that 2-year-olds are the most aggressive. Being 2 is the greatest time of expression of aggression in your life. And then we work really hard to stop that. We don't let our kids be aggressive. We don't let them bite other kids in nursery school. We work really hard for the most part. We don't want them to do that. Well, this is a point where a new kind of aggression is emerging in great leaps and bounds in 4th and 5th and 6th grade. And as an adult, we're responsible for socializing kids to think this is not a good thing to do. And instead, we sit them in front of the TV and we educate them on how to do it and make them think that's entertainment. The numbers of exposures to relational aggressive episodes on television has been studied, and it's huge. So we're really worried about how to help kids to understand that this kind of aggression is hurtful, is mean. Yes, it works for a short time to get friends, but on the long run, they don't want to be friends with you if you're using this kind of manipulative social aggression to get friends and hold them. And it is often the most competent, athletic, powerful, intelligent girls who can be the puppeteer, who can really master this and get other kids to play their tune because they're skillful. They're slightly Machiavellian, but they're skillful Machiavellians. So we want to bring this conversation up. We want to talk about it. The WITS Leads program is a little more structured than the WITS program, and it has basically it has 6 lessons, 6 sessions, but addressing these 5 different areas. So look and listen. What do we see when we're not, what do we see that's mean? Like, what do we see that's going on? How do we understand people's intentions when they're not even speaking to us? So this business of we have an inner world. We can be saying something and thinking something else. So I can be saying, Vincenza's really my best friend, but she used to be, And it's not my language entirely that's telling you I really don't want to have anything to do with her anymore. It's really my nonverbal stuff, right? It can be fairly clear who you're being friends with and who you aren't being friends with. And again, we don't want to be friends with everyone, but we don't want to be particularly mean to one person either. It's not necessary to have friends with everyone. So what do we learn just by looking and listening instead of by talking to people? How can we tell what's going on in their mind? How can we guess that maybe what's going on isn't the same? So if you look in the manual, you'll see little exercises for that. It's a lot about understanding other people's points of view. So this is a really good time to start pushing, how would so-and-so feel? What does so-and-so feel like? How does Jeremy feel? What is going on in the books? How is that person feeling? How should we act? How can we act in a way? How do we know if what we did worked in terms of stopping relational aggression? And how do we know when to seek help? So that's the issue here. We don't want 4th and 5th graders coming with every little problem. We actually would like them to start doing some of these things themselves. So how do they know when they've got a problem that needs help? Again, very much fit with their identity issues, with what they're trying to do, the idea that they're trying to regulate their self-esteem. This is a time where your body's out of control, where your relationships have just all been busted up because there's all these new kids in your middle school, or there's new kids coming in. Someone else wants to be friends with your old friends. You don't even know if you want to be friends with them anymore, but you don't want anybody else to be friends with them either. There's a lot of change. It's an age where you're really trying to build your self-esteem and who you are at this age. That business about finding who you are, that's not right. The business of identity is really finding who you will be recognized as. So it's not just a matter of who do you feel yourself to be, especially at this age group. It's a matter of what am I willing to see you as. So if I'm only willing to see you as the recess queen, that's who you are. I'm sorry, that's your reputation. That's who you're going to be in the school. And it can be really, really harsh to be pushed into that kind of an identity that doesn't work for you or isn't who you are. There's a lot in this age group about being popular, about having leaders, about what's a good leader, who's a leader that's recognized by the school, what kind of leading are you being recognized for? Are you the puppeteer of a aggressive girl group, or are you the competent person who helps out in your class or helps out in the school play or the playground, or goes to read to the kindergarten kids, reads WITS books to the kindergarten kids? Who are you recognized as? Who do your peers see you as? Who likes who matters at this age enormously, as you know. What is your reputation? Are you a friendly kid or you're not so friendly kid? What are you good at? What can you do well? What are you recognized for? So are you recognized because you're an artist or a football player or a soccer player or whatever? Who are you? We're all somebody different. Are you a good reader? What are your skills? What are you talented at?